I will go ahead and start the meeting. If I continue to have technical difficulties, I will call it Amanda. I think part of it is that we often have difficulties when we're on video, I think from last time. So I'm not going to turn my video on if that's okay. I just wanted it on just for the chair report, but it doesn't have to be if that's going to complicate things. Is that okay? Brittany?
Yes.
That's fine, Dr. McLean.
Oh, okay. No, if nobody could hear me or
no,
so you can't hear me.
Can you hear
fine.
me, Dr. McLean? This is Robert.
Robert,
can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly, Robert. It's when Brittany's speaking that it was kind of coming in and out. I don't know why that is.
I'm getting that intermittently with you and Brittany. Right now, nobody else is talking, so I don't know, but it seems like there may be an issue. Brittany, maybe we should have everybody turn off their video unless they're speaking. I don't know if that'll help.
It can absolutely help if we have everybody turn off their cameras and just turn it on when they're speaking. That will assist with the bandwidth.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'll get started then. I won't turn my camera on, and I apologize to everyone for all the difficulty this morning. Okay, this is the Board of Chiropractic Examiners. This meeting is being held by teleconference under the Governor's Executive Order N 2920. The date is April 22nd, 2021, and the time is 9:12 a.m. Public participant instructions. The members of the public that are listening and would like to provide public comment by telephone will be limited to 2 minutes. The discretion of the board circumstances require a longer period. Members of the public will not be permitted to yield their allotted time to other members of the public to make their comments. The board's paramount responsibility is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public through licensure, education, and enforcement in chiropractic. Please be aware that this meeting is being audio recorded. Please turn off or silence your cell phones and mute yourself when you are not speaking or presenting. We will now take the roll for the board. Mr. Ruffino, would you kindly take the roll, please?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Yes, I will, and happy Earth Day as today marks the 51st anniversary of Earth Day. Dr. McLean.
Present.
Dr. Paris.
Present.
Frank Ruffino, present. Dr. Adams.
Present.
And Mr. Sweet.
Present.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum and everyone is present.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffino. And now moving on to agenda item 2, the chair's report. Since our last meeting, the board has a new public member. So I would like to welcome Mr. Raphael Sweet at this time officially to the board on behalf of the board and the staff. And Mr. Sweet, if you would like to have some remarks or say something, I would like to invite you to do so at this time.
It's an honor to be a part of the board. I look forward to working with everyone and I appreciate the welcome. Good morning, everyone.
Welcome.
Welcome. Great to have you.
So thank you so much for that, Mr. Sweet. As we move forward, I would like to recognize the awesome job that the staff and Mr. Pulio has done and currently is doing, working and dealing with all of the many facets of the board that happen behind the scene. Oftentimes, I think the public doesn't understand the amount of work that goes into the daily affairs of managing the office and the staff. And I just wanted to acknowledge them and all that they are doing for the board. Even on the days where there's not a lot to report back, there's always work that is being diligently handled at the office and with the staff. And so I thank you, and I just wanted to acknowledge you for that. Today, one of the things that will reveal the accomplishments of all the work in IT that we have been going through over the last couple of years. Today, we will actually ratify our first online licensees, which is quite an accomplishment if you have been around and know the undertaking that transitioning to the new IT system or getting an IT system that is up to date and appropriate has been. We're also continuing to see other commitments and of what there are 2 waivers that have been issued by the Department of Consumer Affairs that are currently available to chiropractic licensees. And that is the Dca Waiver 21-134, which postpones the due date of continuing education hours for licensees with expiration months between March 2020 through May 2021. These individuals now have until September 30th, 2021 to complete their 24 hours of continuing education credits. The other waiver is Dca Waiver 20-63, which allows all licensees the ability to take 12 hours of 2-way interactive video conferencing in replacement of their in-person credit to fulfill the 24 hours that are required. There is the possibility that the department will release more waivers in the future as we continue to navigate these times that we are all currently in. One of the other things that I wanted to express is I wanted to also let the public and licensees and everyone in the meeting today that all are welcome. If you have any questions, comments, concerns with our board, you are welcome to reach out to staff and they will assist you in whatever way that they can. But I would like to, however, say that for those who are attending, especially individual committee meetings, we welcome all constructive, meaningful input and even professional discourse. What we will not accept is, or what we will not tolerate is anyone being disrespectful, confrontational, or condescending, especially to our staff and our members. We are all working diligently and demand to be addressed respectfully. And therefore, we are requiring that if you are going to participate, come and participate in a positive manner. And we are happy to listen, to take in what you're bringing forth to us, and to implement whatever is necessary and appropriate. So again, I want to remind you that we do accept and welcome your input. We've had a lot of input over the last year from stakeholders, and we've gotten a lot, we've achieved a lot with that input, and we want to continue those efforts in a positive manner moving forward. And that would be it for my report. Mr. Pulio, do you have anything additional?
No, nothing additional at this time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So at this time, what I would like to move on to agenda item number 3, the presentation and discussion on from Dr. Jason Yeager from the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners.
Madam Chair, this is your legal counsel, Michael Knotes. I'm really sorry to interrupt. And I know this is just your report,
No
but we
worries.
do need to take public comment after each agenda item under the Bagley-Keene Act.
Oh, certainly. My apologies for forgetting that. At this time, is there any public comment regarding the report or information set forth there? Moderator, you can open that up.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type, "I would like to make a public comment." For your reference, instructions are being displayed on your screen now. You will be provided 2 minutes to make your public comment and given a 15-second warning. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, Madam Chair, we have not received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
You're very welcome. Feature has been closed.
Okay, so moving on to agenda item number 3. Again, I'd like to just a little background, give on just a little background. The board will receive a presentation from Dr. Jason Yeager. He's the District 4 Director of the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners, and he will speak to us on the NBCE products and as well as FCLB. Thank you, Dr. Yeager, and we welcome you to begin your presentation.
Madam Chair, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the board and the administration allowing me time on your agenda today. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Great, thank you so much. So the moderator was kind enough to handle the slides, and I trusted everybody's had an opportunity to get our presentation today. We'll be going through 16 slides, 3 separate products that the NBCE would like to share, update, reinvigorate with the board and the administration. At the end of the presentation, if I may, I'd like to be able to open it up for any questions that you may have. And I probably will need somewhere between about 10 and 20 minutes of your time this morning. I want to thank everybody again for allowing me to be here today, and special recognition. My first chiropractic license was in California. I went to school at Southern California University of Health Sciences, and I'm proud to be a 21-year licensee of California. I practice currently in Nevada. I'm the director of a group that has 3 locations in Nevada, and I'm the past president of the Nevada Chiropractic Board of Physicians, as well as the legislative chair. Moving on into our presentation for today, as I mentioned, we're going to go over 3 specific products. The first product will be the Spec Exam. Spec Exam, and bear with me as I get to my slide. The Spec Exam, the Special Purposes Examination, really will have 2 important features. Number 1, it's a tool, a learning device, and also can be a punishment for malpractice issues. The Spec Exam is specifically about clinical competency. So we have 9 different subject areas in clinical competency that you as a board can require your licensees to take and learn and demonstrate the proficiency. These will include case history, physical exam, neuromusculoskeletal examination, diagnostic imaging, clinical lab and special studies, diagnosis and clinical impressions, chiropractic technique, supportive interventions, and case management. Another interesting application and element is for licensees that are coming to California that haven't had Part 4 and even Part 3. Now, the ability to utilize the Spec Exam for those licensees without Part 3 or Part 4 may be something that you guys would discuss separate of here and have to tie into your regulations if that's allowed. but the intent was to replace that examination where a licensee became licensed so long ago that they don't have Part 3. So for licensure law. Moderator, if you'll go to the next slide for me. This examination is available at the request of the state and the licensing agencies. An applicant must have a license to practice chiropractic to be able to take this examination, and it must be ordered by the board. Again, moderator, if you're able to go to slide number 4, please. Thank you. Our examination is offered 6 times per year, and there's no cost to your board whatsoever. The examination will consist of the 9 areas that we discussed. Moving into slide number 5, you can find more information at mynbc.org about the specialty exam. And the examination price, again, would be passed through to the licensee at a cost of $1,500. Next slide will be number 6, and this is the jurisprudence examination. Now, this is exciting for me to be able to present to you as a board and specifically to the administration. In a state with so many chiropractic licensees, this is a product that could potentially really improve workflow and workload on the administration. This is a product that we would develop an examination based specifically on the laws, rules, and regs of the California Chiropractic Board of Examiners, and it would be developed at no cost to the California board. You'll go on to slide 7, please. This board and this administrative body will have complete control of what presents on the examination. An exciting thing is that we can have these grades back to you within 7 to 14 days. We can take over the examination process, the administration, the grading, everything for California. We can set up the test in a few different ways. It can be 24/7. It can be taken open book online by the examinee from their PC, or we can set up proctored scenarios, whichever best fits preference of the California. Slide number 8 for me. Currently, 33 states in the United States are still requiring the jurisprudence examination. And obviously, the point of jurisprudence is preventative. By even in an open book scenario, and for example, requiring a high grade to pass, like a 90%, as we've done in Nevada, this really makes the licensee and the licensee applicant familiarize themselves with the rules and the regs and the laws. Slide number 9. So the first step would be to review the state statutes, and we would determine and examine development, administration, and implementation. Again, the state board would identify the rules and the regs and everything that we want to lay out for the test. Again, you would have full control and autonomy. You guys would develop and approve this test plan. And then finally, the option for examinees to be able to take the test any day, any time of day from the comfort of their home or their office. On slide number 10, we've broken out 4 different categories. This is simply a sample of different ways that we can orient the test. For example, 15% with licensee requirements, 30% patient care, office management at 20%, and then professional conduct at 35%. We're really excited to be able to offer this product to you, and the fact that we can offer it at no cost may make this a quite appealing option in terms of developing the examination. We're going to move forward to slide 12 and finish up with the EBAS product. Now, historically, the EBAS product has been utilized instead of clinical areas, but in the ethical areas. So we've had an examination that required a cost of $1,500 to your licensee. And again, they had to take every element of the EBAS examination. I'm going to stand by and turn off my background. One moment. There we go. What we're excited to tell you now is that instead of the offender having to take every element of ethics and boundaries, and for example, if the complaint was an offender with drug abuse, you may not want to have that licensee having to do a portion of the exam that relates to sexual misconduct. Now what we can do is we can curtail, and you can order specifically which elements of EVAS, and instead of it being $1,500, it would be a $300 per section examination fee. Of interest, we're currently testing now not only in the chiropractic field, but medical, social work and counsel, dental and nursing. And for boards like yourself, where you govern more than one healthcare license, this is a product that we can offer across all of your platform. Moving on to slide 13, we discovered that when we had a multiple choice test question format with the ethics and boundaries examinees, this really allowed them to go through the 4 to 5 question selection and artificially choose the correct answer. So what we've switched to is an essay format. This is really prometrically and from a psychometrician standpoint, improve the testing and the efficacy. Slide 14. Please know that we have a team of 43 experienced graders. The essays are scored out of a total of 16 points, with 12 being passing. And again, we will have these results back to you as a board in no more than 14 days. The National Board of Chiropractors, and I'm on to slide 15, moderator, is a professional testing organization. We are here to make the administration's lives easier. We are here to smooth out systems, and we are an organized testing organization. So as we're expanding our products within the chiropractic realm and out into healthcare as a whole, we're really excited to be able to assist and team up with California Board in any of these products that may be of interest. That concludes our presentation, and now I'd like to open up the floor to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. This is Raphael Sweet. Are there any other states that are using these testing products?
Mr. Sweet, thank you so much. We're currently testing in Florida and Oregon State for jurisprudence products. And then we're in development with South Carolina, Oklahoma. Also outside of the chiropractic field, we're developing the American Board of Chiropractic, the American Academy of Motor Vehicle Injuries.
This is Chiropractor Adams. Dr. Yeager, that was a great presentation. So a couple questions about the 6 times a year. So is the intent of this protocol or this new testing to replace the Part 3s, Part 4s for licensees in the state?
That's a great question. Thank you, Dr. Adams. This is not intended to replace. In fact, most jurisdictions still require the 5 national board testings, which is Part 1 through 4, plus the physical therapy. However, for your older licensees that may not have taken either Part 3 or both Part 3 and Part 4, the Spec Exam is the alternative. Instead of going back and taking 3 and 4, they can do the Spec Exam instead. Again, I want to make sure that we say that that's a product that we can offer in lieu of 3 and 4, but I would encourage the board to look at your state laws and regs.
Hi, this is Robert Pulio. Just wanted to follow up on that. We sorry, let me turn on my video here. We currently use the Spec and the EBAS exam for enforcement purposes. We don't currently use the Spec for in lieu of Part 3 and 4, and that's because of our laws. I mean, that would require an amendment to our act. And also, we currently develop our jurisprudence exam, and there's also a lot of state laws surrounding the development and administration of, development and administration of our jurisprudence exam. So if that was something the board wanted to look into options and consider, we would have to consult with the Department of Consumer Affairs and their examination office and find out if we could meet the requirements of Section 139 of the Business and Professions Code while using an exam by an outside vendor. So that's something the board can consider, but we'd have to comply with all the state laws.
So Robert, that poses the question for me anyway, is what then would, if we have to require 3 and 4, and to change that obviously is going to be a big process. Where would this spec exam, would it fit where Dr. Yeager's saying then, to just people transferring into the state from other states, that we want to make sure that they meet the minimum competencies for our state coming in from outside the state?
Right now, we wouldn't have authority to do that. Right now, if they meet our requirements for coming from another state, which they have to have passed an exam similar or the same exam that our licensees had to pass at the time. And so our law doesn't allow any leeway to say they can pass the spec exam. They would, right now the law requires them to go back and take Part 4. If they were licensed at a time when we were offering Part 4, then they would have to take Part 4. For older licensees, they don't currently have to take Part 4 as long as they've been licensed in their jurisdiction. So if we weren't offering Part 4 at the time and they didn't take Part 4 at the time that they were licensed, then we wouldn't require them to take it. It's only if they were licensed at a time when we were already offering Part 4. It's a little convoluted. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I'm just looking for clarification. So one follow-up question, Dr. Yeager. So I spend a lot of time with the neurology board doing prep for the psychometrics and the ANGOF for the diplomate neurology board. I'm curious, has this spec exam gone through the same kind of ANGOF and psychometrics? You referenced that, but has it gone through the same ANGOF and psychometrics that are necessary to attain that level of accreditation?
Thank you. Great question, Dr. Adams. Our psychometric team aggressively has vetted initially and continues to assess the testing for living up to psychometric procedures. The other thing you mentioned, and forgive me, was it ANGOF?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that term. I'm going to take a note down, and may I follow back up with the board and give you some more information as it relates to that?
Yes. So the ANGOF refers to the a level of competency for certain levels of a question that are created, right? So there's a question that may bear less weight when answered, like somebody recognizing that there's 12 cranial nerves. That would be like a low-level question on ANGOF. But a follow-up question might be, to see the level of their competency, might be, knowing there's 12 cranial nerves, but then knowing the names of the 12 cranial nerves, there's motor sensory. So that kind of a stepping up. Is that the kind of thing that they've gone through for these tests?
Yeah, and what it sounds to me like is that it's weighted, and our tests are weighted, and they're assessed robustly through the psychometric department in that fashion.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate your responses.
Hi, this is Dave Paris. I think just to clarify that, from my experience, Dr. Adams, when the MBCE and I'm not sure exactly what that they call that meeting, but when you gather all the board members and subject matter experts, and it's similar to an ANGOF process where you run through the test and some of the questions from part 4, and the subject matter experts in the room get to kind of go over those and evaluate them. And so I think that's kind of, Dr. Adams, a process you're referring to. I assume you do that annually too. I think that was it.
Thank you, Dr. Parrish. Yes, we do. In fact, in 2 weeks from now, we're going to do that very process with part 3. And then in June, we'll be doing part 2, and it's annual and in some cases semi-annual.
Yeah, because it's the ANGOF, I think, if I'm correct, and Dr. Adams, please clarify that, but is more relative to having SMEs in the room weighing in on the questions as opposed to necessarily weighting the question itself. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's we're on the same page. I was just wanting to clarify that process took place with having not sat in on anything with the NBCE and the formation of the examination. I was just making sure that there was that process, and it sounded like it was. Just wanted to clarify. So thank you, Dr. Yeager. Very good presentation.
Well, with that and not hearing any other questions, again, I really appreciate the time and the agenda. If there's any other follow-up that anybody has or thinks of later, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. My direct email with the NBCE is J as in Jason, JAEGER @nbce.org. So that's jyeager@nbce.org. With that, I look forward to seeing some of you, the FCLB and the NBCE delegates and alternate delegates, next week for the annual meeting. And I wish you guys a great meeting and a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yeager, for that very informative presentation. We appreciate that, and thanks everyone for their input. Now, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 4. Oh, do I need to ask for public comment, Mr. Knope?
Yes, Dr. McLean, we will have to do that after each agenda item.
Okay, I apologize again. So at this time, moderator, if you could open it up, I'd like to offer the opportunity for public comment at this time on the presentation.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. You can request public comment by clicking on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type "I would like to make a public comment." You will be provided 2 minutes and given a 15-second warning. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, it does not appear we've received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
Feature has been closed.
Thank you. So now we can move on to agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes from December 11th of 2020.
I move approval for Frank Rufino.
Second, Paris.
Is there any discussion? Then I'd like to call for the vote.
Madam Chair, this is Michael again. We will need to open for public comment on the motion as well.
Okay. Moderator, can we open for public comment?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, reference for instructions are being displayed currently. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close this feature?
I would, and I'd like to apologize. I do have one correction that I'd like to bring forth on page 2. There's just a spelling error in the paragraph for the motion. The paragraph that state, or the sentence that states proceeding rulemaking package. Do we have that clear, Mr. Pulio, where I'm talking, what I'm speaking of?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I was focusing on something else when you mentioned where that was.
Okay, on page 2, midway through the motion, it's just a spelling correction. It states the sentence that begins proceeding rulemaking package is spelled incorrectly.
Oh, okay.
About the 6th row down. That was my only correction. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I got my papers a little discombobulated here. So it took me a minute to get reorganized.
Oh, that's okay.
That was my only correction.
Okay, I have it highlighted. We got it. Thank you. That's a good catch.
Fantastic.
It's one of those fool the eye things.
Right, exactly. That being said, if there's no other discussion and no public comment, I would like to call for the vote.
Dr. McLean,
Yes.
Dr. Perez,
Yes.
Rufino, yes. Dr. Adams,
Approve.
and Mr. Sweet.
Approved.
Madam Chair, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Rufino. So we'd like to move on to the approval of the January 28th, 2021 minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Rufino,
Second that. Adams.
Is there a discussion? If there's no discussion, then I'd like to open it up for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened for public comment. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type, "I would like to comment." All comments will be addressed in the order they are received. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have received no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
You're welcome. Feature has been closed.
Since there's no discussion and no public comment, I'd like to call for the vote. Mr. Rufino?
Dr. McLean,
Yes.
Dr. Perez,
Yes.
Rufino, yes. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ruffino. With that in mind, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 6, ratification of approval of license applications. Do I have a motion?
Move approval, Rufino.
Second, Adams.
Is there any discussion? Is no discussion noted? Then I'd like to open it up for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. Instructions for reference on how to request public comment are currently being displayed. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we've received no requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Feature has been closed.
With that, I'd like to call for the vote. Mr. Ruffino.
Dr. McLean,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Rufino, yes. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet,
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Ruffino. Now we'd like to move on to agenda item number 7, ratification of denied license applications. At this time, we have none to review or to vote on. So I'd like to move on to item number 8. Do I have to ask for public comment if there's none, Mr. Knotes?
I think we can dispense with it there. There's nothing to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you. Therefore, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 8, ratification to approve continuing education providers. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Move that the board approve the new CE provider applicants. Rufino.
I'll second
Paris,
that.
second.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead. Dr. Paris can second that.
Paris, second. Thank you.
Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, I'd like to ask the moderator to please open up for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. Instructions for your reference on how to submit or request public comment are currently being displayed. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals to access this feature. At this time, Madam Chair, we have received no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Feature has been closed.
So there being no discussion and no public comment, I'd like to call for the vote. Mr. Ruffino?
Dr. McLean,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Rufino, yes. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Madam Chair, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ruffino. With that being said, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 9, the Executive Officer's Report And I'd like to have Mr. Robert Pulio. You may give your report and take over.
Thank you very much, Dr. McLean. So I'll be updating the board on administrative matters, including staffing, HR, budget, licensing, enforcement, and IT. And I'll start with administration. We've been busy with the recruitment process. We advertised and will soon be interviewing for an analyst position, an associate analyst position, and a clerical position in the enforcement unit. And enforcement's been very busy, and we need the extra staff there. So looking forward to having those positions filled by the next board meeting. We also still have a vacant enforcement manager position that was vacated by Kristen when she moved into the assistant executive officer position. So we've decided to fill that with a retired annuitant, which would be a temporary assignment, but we wanted to bring in somebody who has the skill set that we need, who's an experienced enforcement manager in administration. And so we've gotten preliminary approval to make an offer. And so by the next meeting, I hope to introduce our retired annuitant, who will be a huge asset in helping us deal with a lot of the enforcement issues we have in preparing for next year's sunset review, and the reporting for that. The experience that the individual, if we're able to hire this person, will bring would be huge. So I'm looking forward to that. As far as the budget, there's no changes to our budget. I'm sorry, our fund condition from the last meeting. There's nothing significant to report. As I've mentioned at prior meetings, we're in the process of working with a consultant on a fee analysis. And we've met with them once. We've provided them with a lot of data to review and statistics on our budget. So they are looking through that. We'll be meeting with them and discussing current processes to determine areas where we likely need to increase fees. As we all know, the fund is currently low, and we will be in a deficit situation. I'm sorry, just one second. We will be in a deficit situation in another year or two. We've been trying to manage things very closely to put that off as long as possible. But in the next year, the next legislative session, we will need to introduce a fee bill in order to keep our funds solvent and be able to keep up with our licensing and enforcement activities. So I anticipate that report being completed before the next board meeting, and we will have somebody from the consulting firm attend the meeting to answer board member questions about the fee analysis. I believe Mr. Ruffino has his hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Pulio. Yes, I do have a question. I can wait until you're done, or if you like,
You can go ahead now. You can go ahead now. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pulio. I just have a quick question regarding your retire annuitant hire for the enforcement manager position.
Yes.
And so the question is, I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to understand why you're going the route of the retire annuitant versus, if it's a permanent position. I'm just trying to understand the rationale. Why is that you chose the retire annuitant versus?
We decided to go that route because most likely with the manager position, more likely than not, the majority of the applicants would be entry level, would be people who are currently analysts and who are promoting into a manager classification. which is great. And we're very proactive here about developing talent and promoting people from within and so on. But right now we have so much going on with our fund condition, with sunset review, dealing with everything we've had to deal with because of COVID. We needed somebody who could hit the ground running. And so we decided temporarily to help us kind of get our, we don't have significant backlogs or anything, but we are kind of overwhelmed. And so we do want to get back on our feet, so to speak, and having somebody who is retired and has executive level management experience and in enforcement and in licensing and DCA specific, we felt that would be a huge asset at this time and would help us get things smoothed over, especially the position's been vacant for a while. So if we do hire somebody who isn't experienced as a manager, then we'll have things in a little better order for that person to step in. So it's a smoother transition. And also we can overlap. We can have the retired annuitant when we're ready to recruit. We can have the retired annuitant assist with training and onboarding the new manager. So it's just a temporary thing for this year, because this past year, as we all know, has just hit us with a lot of unexpected challenges. And so we still have a lot of work to do to catch up on, and we have challenges ahead. As I mentioned, sunset review is a big thing weighing over us. So having that experience will be very beneficial.
Okay, well, thank you. So it's a temporary, obviously, and that you can always place that in the blanket, so it doesn't not eliminate a permanent staff position.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, we do want to fill that staff position. One thing we needed, we were between the manager position and then we had a vacant analyst position, and we actually created a clerical position for enforcement because we didn't have one there previously. So we wanted to get the staff on board right away because there's a lot of work to be done, and so we wanted to get staff on board to do the work. And we just felt it would be much more efficient and effective to bring on a retired annuitant to help with everything that needs to be done in enforcement and in other areas of the office. So again, we can get back on our feet, and I think it'll be to the benefit of the manager that we do hire down the line to be able to come in when things aren't quite as chaotic, and to have the benefit of an experienced enforcement manager to help onboard them.
Yep, got it. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Pulio. I do have also another quick concern, and maybe you can help me understand it better, and that is on the fund analysis. If I can take you to it, ask you about the months in reserve. So as you can see for the year 2022-2023, we are dropping to 0.4. And so is my assumption that will change once we do a fee analysis and once we be able to increase revenues? Because going from the actual 5.9 all the way down to 0.4, that's very concerning. And is there a minimum that we need to keep in reserve statutorily? I'm not sure, but if you can comment on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
We don't have a statutory minimum. I would like to keep at least 6 months in reserve. So if you look at the bottom of that fund condition, and this is the same fund condition that we had at the last board meeting. We haven't had an updated one since then, but that 5.9 was for fiscal year 2018-2019. If you look at the third column, that's current year, we currently have 3.4 months in reserve, and the projection going forward is in a year to have, or the next fiscal year to have 2 months, and then 0.4. One thing, as I've mentioned in past budget updates, we typically don't spend our full budget. A lot of these fund condition predictions are based on what is budgeted, and we don't always spend what's budgeted. So we likely this paints a gloomier picture than there actually is. Certainly we're going in the direction of a deficit, and we do need to raise fees, but our fund isn't, we're not going to spend as much money as because when they do the projections, they're anticipating that we're going to spend our full budget, and since we generally don't, we won't be in a deficit situation as soon as this might indicate, but we are getting there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Pulio, for that clarification.
You're welcome. So,
Mr.
does
Pulio,
anybody else have any questions about the budget?
This is Dr. Adams. Can I piggyback on that? So
Sure.
with saying that, does that, I mean, assuming that we get this analysis done, and get fees increased, which you and I have spoken, and we've, as a board, that would be good. Does that mean then that we may avert that, or at least push it out to 2023, 24, 24, 25?
I don't think we'll likely push it out. The whole purpose of the fund analysis is to examine, all of our processes and ensure, our fees need to be based on the actual cost of providing the services. And so we're not a for-profit entity, so we're not looking to build a huge budget surplus. We just want to be prudent and have sufficient money for if we get hit with large enforcement costs, if we have big cases, or if there's some litigation we have to engage in. There's always things that have hit our board in the past and will hit us in the future that we're not expecting, and will take a hit on our fund. And so it's good to have that reserve. So we want to determine what we need to set our fees at, in particular the license renewal fee, because that's our primary source of revenue. So what does the license renewal fee need to be? And then also the other fees that we charge for, like satellite certificates and corporations and so on. We want to make sure that we're charging the appropriate amount for those, so that the individuals that are getting those certificates, that are utilizing those services, are paying for them, and not the the general license population. So that's what we'll be looking at in the analysis, determining what the fees will be. Most likely in the next calendar year, we will have a fee bill, or we will be in a fee bill. That's the goal. And then once we raise fees, it will be with the goal of setting them at an amount that will allow us to replenish our fund and maintain it for the foreseeable future at a sufficient level, at least 6 months in reserve.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions related to the budget or the fee analysis?
Yeah, I have this is Raphael Sweet. Just a quick question for you.
Sure.
So has there been any, since I'm new, has there been any discussion before about how much we would need to raise the fees in order to get back to where we want to be in the budget?
That we haven't determined yet, because that'll be part of the analysis. That's what the consulting firm we're working with is looking at right now, is what do we need to based on current spending and projected spending, what do we need to set the fees at to to maintain that fund balance. So we will at the next board meeting, we will be getting more detail on that. But it's this past few years, we've been hit with a lot of unanticipated expenses, and we're paying back a loan that we have from another program. We're implementing a new IT system, which has been very costly. There's just been a lot of changes that have had a big impact on our budget, and we haven't had a chance, or we haven't had time, because it wasn't all that long ago that we did increase fees. and our fund hadn't replenished to a point where we could weather some of these things. So it's too soon to know exactly what the fee needs to be, but that's what we're working on.
Okay, thank you for that. And so you're
Miss-
saying we'll be discussing that a little bit more at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Robert,
That's okay.
Mr. Pulio. But this is not, this is just in general. Myself and others are still getting a lot of buffering. I'm wondering if we can maybe try to work on a few minutes of our break to try and work on it, because even though everybody's video is off except for yours, it's still a lot of buffering. Like I missed the first minute and a half of what you were saying because it was just coming in and out. And I thought it might be just me, but I just asked a couple other people. I just asked, and there was other people who are having the same issues. So if we can talk about that later, but just understand, just kind of speak slowly, and understand that we're getting a lot of buffering. That for whatever reason, the technology today is not in our favor.
Okay. Yeah, and I see that you have your hand raised, and I'm not always picking up on that. So if Brittany, if you happen to see one of the board members' hands up, if you could alert me so that I don't keep going on and on if they can't hear. So
Yes, sir.
anyhow, so on to licensing. The licensing stats are in your packet, and it's only been a couple of months since the last meeting, so there hasn't been a significant change in our licensing stats. I'll ask our licensing manager, Dixie Van Allen, if there's anything in particular you'd like to highlight on the budget stats, or otherwise, if Dixie doesn't have anything, then we can just answer questions if any of the board members have questions about the stats.
Thank you, Mr. Pulio. Everything remains pretty consistent. However, I did want to direct everybody's attention to our total population of clear chiropractic licenses. It has remained pretty consistent in the 12,600 range for the past 6 months. It's fluctuated slightly here and there. So we had a drop from September to October in about 100 licensees, but overall we've remained pretty consistent. And in the past, it's been a slight decrease every month. And so that's something promising to look forward to. We'll see how the rest of the year plays out. We are utilizing, or licensees are utilizing, our online system a lot. We are renewing licenses, we're getting license applications, people are getting satellites and renewing satellites. So a lot of licensees are able to utilize that system, and it has taken a big burden of the workload off of our staff. Other than that, everything is pretty consistent. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anything. Thank you, Mr. Pulio.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Van Allen. Next is our enforcement update. Again, enforcement stats are in your package. I will ask our Assistant Executive Officer, former Enforcement Manager, Kristen Walker, if she has anything in particular she'd like to highlight on the enforcement stats.
Thank you. The enforcement statistics are fairly consistent with what we've seen this fiscal year. The only notable item that I'd like to point out is that we have filed more accusations, so that number's been steadily climbing as we see the cases that we've referred over to the Attorney General's office making their way through the process with our pleadings being prepared and served. So we are now up to 23 and still counting as we go through the fiscal year. The only other notable item that you'll probably see is looking at the accusations, our pending case number is still relatively high at 67. A lot of that's attributed to just with the COVID pandemic and with the Office of Administrative Hearings not holding in-person hearings. So we're seeing a lot of people that are requesting extensions, and they're trying to wait it out rather than participating in the video hearings. So that's kind of causing a little bit of, I wouldn't necessarily call it a backlog, but we do have a number of cases that are still pending and making their way through the process. Other than that, everything is pretty consistent with what we've been seeing just over the past few months and at the last updates I was giving. Our pending complaint number is still stuck right around 600. I'm hopeful that once we get our retired annuitant on board, as well as filling the clerical position and the analyst position in the enforcement unit, that we'll be able to get that number down. But other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Also, it is important to note that, as Kristen mentioned, that we, if hearings are being delayed because the Office of Administrative Hearings isn't holding in-person hearings, and so a lot of respondents are requesting that their hearing be extended because they are entitled to, have a fair hearing, and if they believe that the process won't give them the benefit of being seen in person and being before the judge in person, they can request a hearing, and a lot of those are being granted. And I just highlight that because until those cases are adjudicated, which if they're not being heard and they're going on for a year or two, then all those cases are, as Kristen said, it's not really a backlog. It's not like we have work that we have yet to do, but we have cases that we're waiting to close, and we have no control over that hearing process or when that happens. And so that also is contributing to our pending cases. So hopefully pretty soon things will return to some kind of normal, and they will have in-person hearings, and that will start moving a lot of those old cases out of our, and we can take them off our books. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Real quick, when I was looking over some of the February 2021, this is Dr. Adams, sorry. I guess I should put on my video when I'm talking. So I had a question about, so when I look over some of the names and some of the actions that have been taken, just for my clarification purposes, still being a little bit new, when it says disciplinary actions, some of the names I recognize, having reviewed the cases via email and then sent back a vote. Some of them I don't recognize. When I don't recognize the name, does that mean that the decision was made like internally, or is it or is it still pending? And because when it says effective date, I'm assuming that's the date that the disciplinary action became effective and the decision was made.
What specifically are you referring to? Are you looking at the table that is up above? It says January 2021 enforcement actions.
No, I'm looking at the one that, let's see, it says it says like final site. There's a list of the January enforcement actions and the dates they were filed, and then if you keep turning, it goes to February 21 enforcement actions. And then it says, the top there says accusations filed. Then the next one says disciplinary actions. And then it gives a list of names. And my question is it some of the names I recognize, having reviewed those that were sent to me via email and then reviewed the documentation and then sent back my vote? Whether to approve or not approve the action. I'm assuming, my recollection is that a lot of those have to do with a review of the case, and this is the recommended action on the part of the Deputy Attorney General, having gone through the process, and then we're just looking at it, reviewing it to see if we want to carry it over or approve it. Some of the names I recognize, some of the names I don't. I'm wondering why. Is it because that's something that's done internally by staff and by you?
No disciplinary action is taken without the board adopting if I enter into a stipulated settlement with a respondent, then that stipulation will go to the board to adopt or not adopt. Same as with if a case goes to an administrative hearing, then the administrative law judge's decision will go to the board to non-adopt or non-adopt. I'm going to guess, looking at these effective dates, because you're relatively new to the board, these probably were voted on prior to your being appointed to the board, but then then it takes, they don't go into effect until 30 days after the board chair signs off on it. So some of these may have been adjudicated prior to your appointment to the board, and they're just now showing up here. So that's, Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that's probably why he doesn't recognize some of the names.
Yeah, that's mainly it. Yeah, looking at those enforcement actions items, just to clarify, for accusations filed, those are done by the executive officer. So those are done internally and then routed through the Attorney General's office. But anything that you see in the disciplinary actions section, which are final actions, those are all voted on by the board through the mail vote process. And I would suspect that if you don't recognize one of the names, then the vote probably occurred prior to your appointment to the board. And then we were just, for some reason, we were taking time to implement and process the decision. One other item just to note is the only exception to that on the disciplinary actions is if we have a default decision, which is where we file an accusation and the person doesn't respond, and then we proceed with a default decision to revoke their license. That's the only exception, because that will just, that circumstance will only go to the chair just to have them signed, because there's not really much to vote on. The person didn't file an appeal, so it's a default. But other than that, if you see anything else on that list, they go through the mail vote process with the board members.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions regarding the enforcement statistics? Hearing none, I will ask Ms. Walker to update us on the IT project, the status of our new database.
Sure. So staff has continued to work with the Department of Consumer Affairs, Office of Information Services, and the vendor on the development and implementation of our new IT system, known and branded as Connect. Right now, our existing functionality includes the initial license application, license renewals, address changes, satellite office locations, and then also the ability for licensees to pay for and submit the other application types by uploading a paper application and paying by credit card. We're about halfway through the project right now, and we're currently developing our enforcement functionality, which is a pretty large piece because it's going to include everything from a front-facing website for the public to be able to file their complaints online, and then all the back office functionality for staff to be able to work through the complaint investigation process and then carry it through the disciplinary process, and then eventually getting to probation monitoring. And then we're also working on the continuing education provider and course applications, and then bringing on the corporation certificates into the program. That's what we're kind of working on these next few months. We're currently in the third product increment. We're getting ready for a launch here within the next few months, and then we'll carry on to the fourth and final product increment. And then we're going to have, after that, a pretty lengthy maintenance and operations period where we can continue to refine the system and take care of smaller items. As far as that's my update for the IT project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So, hi, Kristen. So you said that right now we're in the third increment of implementation, and what will the fourth increment?
So right now we're finishing up the third increment, and then we're going to continue. So the fourth increment is going to be where we get the majority of our enforcement functionality live and stood up, and also our CE process, so that getting the continuing education provider and course applications online, and then integrating the records and with our licensee records. So those are the two major items that are going to be coming on board once we get into the fourth increment. And then we're also going to be working on smaller kind of refinement and user experience type items.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have so much a question. This is Dr. Adams, as a comment that I just want to commend the staff and Robert, you and everybody. I know this has been a monumental undertaking for you, and I commend you for your diligence. And it's exciting to see us come deeper into the 21st century.
Thank you. We're excited about that too. It's been a long time coming. So I'm happy to answer any questions about any of the items that were covered under the executive officer's report. Otherwise, I have nothing more to report at this time.
Thank you again, Robert, to Mr. Puleo and staff for that. And again, I would also like to echo Dr. Adams' sentiment, because I have been there through this journey with you for the last few years and know what it has taken for us to get here. And I'm so happy to see that we're moving forward with IT, because it's so imperative for us to be effective and to also be more cost effective in our endeavors. At this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type, "I would like to make a public comment." All comments will be addressed in the order they are received. You will be provided 2 minutes to make your comment and given a 15-second warning. With that, I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes.
Feature has been closed.
Thank you. I think we have a break scheduled now.
Couldn't hear what the moderator was just saying. Did she close? There was no public comment?
Yes, she did. And
okay.
Now I think the break is our next agenda item, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yes. So at
Okay.
this time, we would like to take a 15-minute break.
The time is
It is
currently
now
10:27.
10:27.
So
Go ahead.
can we just call it 10:45? I'm sorry. Keep interrupting.
Yes, that would be fine. And then if we can talk briefly about the tech issues that we're still having, that would be fantastic. So let's say we will return at 10:45. We will adjourn it for a 15-minute meeting, 15-minute break, and then we'll return at 10:45.
Is everybody present?
We should probably
Do a roll
have
call.
Mr. Ruffino call the roll. Yes.
Okay, I'd like to bring us back and ask Mr. Ruffino to please do a roll call so that we can reconvene the meeting.
I'll be happy to, Madam Chair. Dr. McLean, obviously you're here. We can see you on camera. Dr. Perez?
Sorry,
Dr.
present.
Perez?
Hi,
Oh.
I'm present. I was trying to get my camera on too.
That's okay. Thank you, Dr. Perez. Rufino is here. I'm talking. Dr. Adams
Present.
and Mr. Sweet.
Present.
Excellent. Madam Chair, everyone is present and ready to go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Rufino. And with that in mind, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 10. Update, discussion, and possible action on the Licensing and Continuing Education Committee meeting agenda. And I happen to be the one on that committee that will handle this report. That being said, the Licensing and Continuing Education Committee has met and discussed the presentation from FCLB regarding the PACE program. The committee reviewed two options that PACE brought forth at our last full board meeting in January. And the two models that are available that incorporate PACE, the first model is that boards can accept all PACE approved providers and any continuing ed courses those providers offer. The board would not review the course materials as PACE provides a 25 category review of the provider and certifies them as PACE. The second option is to recognize PACE providers, but retain control over reviewing and approving continuing ed course content. An alternate application, a PACE pre-check application, is utilized by boards in this instance. After reviewing the two examples provided by PACE, the board and entertaining all questions with Ms. Webb from the PACE, the board decided that the model that best fits our needs would be the pre-check model into the current continuing ed review that we're doing. The committee also began the review process of the proposed changes to the regulatory document, Article 6, Continuing Education Sections 361 through 366, including all supplemental forms and applications. This is a lengthy process, and the Continuing Ed Committee will continue to evaluate and move through all of those sections as we continue to meet and discuss those. But for today's purpose, we wanted the Continuing Ed Committee wanted to bring forth to the full board, asking that the full board adopt the language to the Continuing Ed regs by including the approval of the PACE certified providers while retaining the authority to review and approve CE courses through PACE pre-check applications. And so at this time, we would like to ask for a motion to do just that, to adopt the language of the continuing ed, the changes to the continuing ed regs to include the PACE pre-check.
Madam Chair, is this a committee motion, or do you need a separate motion?
This, let's ask Mr. Knotes. This is a committee's recommendation that it be a full board motion, that it be adopted by the full board.
Yeah, yes, Dr. McLean, I think you will need a motion at this point. The committee took some action, but at this point, there would need to be a motion at for purposes of the board meeting today.
Fantastic. So yes, Mr. Rufino, we do need a motion from the full board so that we can discuss further if there's any further discussion, as well as vote on whether or not we would like to add that to our continuing ed regs.
Okay, well then I'll be happy to move that the board adopt language into the CE regulations to accept PACE certified providers while maintaining control over the review and approval of CEE courses through use of the PACE pre-check application as recommended by the Licensing and CE Committee.
Paris, second.
Is there any further discussion or questions regarding this?
I do have a question. This is Dr. Paris. When we had, and maybe this is just a clarification I'm looking for, when we had previously discussed this, and I think when they presented to the board call, maybe this came up, but one of the things that we had noticed was that there were providers that had accepted courses, and the CE provider was not actually the instructor. And so there was a question or a concern about, and I'm not sure if that involves this process particularly, but they seem to kind of overlap. So there was a question as to having some sort of oversight or control over the actual approval of the instructor versus necessarily just the CE provider or the course syllabus per se. And
Dr. McLean, would you like me to respond to that?
Yes, because we definitely did discuss that. So go ahead, Mr. Pulio.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Robert.
the PACE doesn't approve courses. They will audit courses. As when they approve the provider, part of what they do is they periodically audit their courses, and if there's issues with courses, they'll address them with it. So, and also providers may offer courses that California wouldn't want to give credit for. That's why the pre-check would be the best option for us to adopt through our regulations. We would then be able to we would accept a provider based on their PACE approval or accreditation. And so they wouldn't have to apply to us to be a provider, but that provider would have to submit any courses they want to offer in California for CE. They would have to submit them to us to approve, and we would approve the course content, as well as, we would get the CV for the instructor. And so if we had any concerns with that, we'd be able to address it. So we would maintain control over what courses we approve. It's just that we would accept providers that are already accredited by PACE.
Okay, yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, and this is Natalie. I just also wanted to add that as part of the PACE provider approval process, they have those 25 category review, and one of those is to review the hiring standards and the credentialing of the instructors. Now, my understanding is they don't go through each instructor and evaluate each of their CVs and approve each of those individuals, but the organization, the provider, has to address in their application how they determine these instructors should be teaching which content or what their hiring practices are to ensure that they have quality instructors for their courses.
And it's my understanding, just to piggyback on what Natalie's saying, is that the organization is held responsible, like she said, for their instructors. And if there's a problem, whether it's an audit or a complaint, they have a system to do the investigation and to follow through with that to rectify the situation. Does that answer your question, Dave, Dr. Paris?
Yeah, I think that was it. I just thank you for the clarification. I remembered there was a discussion about all of that, and that's correct. I think I was thinking of
Madam Chair.
again.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
this is Dr. Adams.
Yes, Dr. Adams.
So just one other thing too. I think, Natalie, I reviewed the documents from the PACE last night again, and then reviewed some of the minutes of our last committee meeting when I can't remember the doctor that spoke, but that they are apparently having a meeting in June where they're going to be discussing adopting or including in the process the overview of the instructor to make sure that they are that they have a license. I think one of the concerns you expressed, Dr. Paris, last time was that some of these instructors might be sneaking in kind of in the back door, but that their license will be checked, verified to make sure that they are current and that there's no disciplinary action pending. And I think that's one of the things that the PACE discussed would be happening in June that they're going to include. And then one
Yes,
other thing, just for my own
correct.
so just one other thing for my own clarification, and Natalie, you can jump in on this, was that if a PACE provider has already been approved by PACE and gone through their rigorous approval process, that they're being approved, but their courses, we're not just tacitly approving all the courses they've done, that
Right.
the board retains oversight and review of those, just like we've always done with continuing education, make sure the programs are matching what our rules and regs are for our state's requirements, correct?
Correct.
Yes,
And then
that's
still also that people have the option, is just for my own clarification again, the adopting of this does not mean that is every new provider going through the PACE pre-check, or is it an option? I think that we discussed in the committee meeting is that a provider can say, you know, I want to go through the California board's process because I'm not interested in having nationwide access to their program. They're just wanting to stay within California. But if they wanted to do something to provide CE to all the accepting states, that they would have to go through the PACE pre-check provider requirements. Am I understanding that correct?
So that's correct. That's the reason that we retained some control too. We are not saying that everybody has to be a PACE provider, but we're saying that we will accept PACE providers, and people have the option of doing that or just maintaining their individual provider status with us, with the state, if that is not something that they're interested in national organization or national the ability to have the national exposure and acquire people from all over the nation as in their courses.
Thank you. That clarifies for me. Appreciate that,
And then-
Natalie.
Did you want to
Madam
add
Chairman.
something?
I did. I
Thank
just
you.
also wanted to add that the providers we currently have, those close to 200 providers that we're currently working with in California, they will not be affected by this. They will have their provider status as is, as long as they renew, and they will continue to submit CE applications as they always have. This will just be for anyone new who wishes to offer CE courses in California.
Or existing providers who decide that they would like to get PACE approved or accredited, then they no longer would need to continue being approved by us. They could go the PACE route and then provide us with the documentation, or we would confirm with PACE that they are accredited. So it would open up another option for for our existing providers and anybody else who wants to be a provider. So they could choose either to be approved by California or accredited by PACE, or if they want, they can do both, but it won't be necessary.
Okay, so this is Dr. Adams again. So I apologize. Maybe I'm being a little bit tedious here, but I just want to make sure I'm clear because I'm hearing two different things. So just Natalie, when you said new providers, I thought, just to clarify, new providers that come into California that don't want national exposure don't have to go through the PACE pre-check, correct?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes.
Okay.
They will have
So-
two options available to them. They can apply directly with the board with our provider application, or should they decide they would like to be at the national level, they will apply with PACE to become a provider and then eventually submit a pre-check course application to us.
Got it. Okay, great. That does it for me. Appreciate it.
Okay.
There was one other question or follow-up question that I had, and maybe Mr. Pulio or Ms. Boyer, you have already addressed this. At that meeting, there was supposed to be some additional follow-up from FCLB to Mr. Pulio regarding the list of the 8 states that currently utilize the pre-check system. Did we receive that information?
Dr. McLean, I do have that here. If you just hold a moment, I will make loud paper noises and I'll come back on and tell you what they are. One moment.
Great.
That actually didn't take as long as I thought. So do you want just me to list off the states that are using the pre-check method? Hello?
Sorry, I was muted. Sure.
Oh. Okay. So the states that are currently using the pre-check method, and this is directly from the PACE website, is Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Texas, but that's only for CCE colleges only. They have a stipulation within theirs. So
Great.
those are the states.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had that information and expose that information if anybody else wanted that. So that being said, we have a motion on the floor.
Can I make one more comment question?
Oh, certainly.
And I just want to close the loop and wrap my mind around this. So, and this is for Robert's staff. So, accepting that PACE has the, we would accept them, the second option, and we would review control on reviewing the courses, but we would not necessarily go through, or would we defer to PACE and the process that was mentioned a few minutes ago as to like the secondary instructors or the actual instructors versus the CE provider?
No,
Or
we
would we have an
still-
internal process where we'd have to go through every time they submit and look at, okay, now they're having these instructors, like, because providers can have a lot of different instructors. So I'm just trying to clarify that. Are we going to have an internal process, or are we going to defer to what I thought I heard Natalie say earlier, that they have a like a 25-point check for the providers?
You're correct.
And
This is Robert. The what PACE does is they're similar to the Council for Chiropractic Education in that they accredit the providers. They don't approve every course or every instructor, but they have standards that the providers have to demonstrate, their ability to perform and maintain. And so this that adds another layer of review that's good, but our law still currently requires providers, when they're submitting a course for approval, to submit the CVs of all the instructors. So we would still review the CVs, and if we had concerns about a instructor, if it was a PACE approved course, we could let PACE know that we have concerns about the instructor, but we could also raise it with the provider and ask them how this individual is qualified to teach the course they're teaching if we think that their resume or CV doesn't demonstrate competency.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So I feel better with that we have an internal process for the actual instructors versus just blanket accepting providers and then any instructor they might provide. Thank you.
No, and yeah, and the beauty of PACE is that because they are auditing and they do have requirements and standards that the providers need to meet. If we do have concerns, and if it's a PACE approved core or provider, we can alert PACE that we have concerns, and then they have the ability to audit and look into things. So they could be a partner in our review process for courses.
Thank you.
Is there anything further discussion from any member or staff? That being said, is there any public comment?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened for Q&A. If you would like to make a public comment for your resource, the instructions are being displayed now on the screen. You will be provided 2 minutes and given a 15-second warning. With that, we do have an individual that would like to make public comment. An individual identified as Lori Eisenberg. Your microphone has been... Actually, Lori, it does appear that you want to make a public comment, but it does not appear that I have an audio device connected to you. If you go up to the top of your screen and click on the audio video, you can call into this meeting to make your public comment, but unfortunately at this time, you don't have an audio connection, therefore cannot ask your question. Okay, let me try this. She's stating she is connected telephonically. Lori,
Hello?
is this
Can you
you?
hear me now?
Yes,
this is me.
go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you all. This is good news about PACE, and I'm the director of continuing education at Life Chiropractic College West. And my question was, excuse me, my question is, will you continue to individually approve every course submitted through PACE, through the pre-check, and issue approval numbers?
Yes, we will, Laurie.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Lori, please ensure that you do lower your hand by clicking on the hand raise feature once more. With that, we do not have any additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Your welcome feature has been closed.
And with that being said, I would like to ask Mr. Ruffino to call for the vote.
Dr. McLean,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Rufino, yes. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet,
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffino. And now I'd like to move on to agenda item number 11, update, discussion, and possible action on pending rulemaking. I'd like to turn this over to Ms. McMillan, our policy analyst, for that update.
Good morning, everyone. This is Andrea.
Madam
and
Chairman, I just had a quick question.
Yes, Dr. Adams?
Hello, Madam Chairman.
Yes, can you
I
hear me?
guess I maybe I should have, yeah, I can hear you. And perhaps I probably should have done this earlier. I'm still a novice at this, but I just wanted to make a recommendation and get just some input. It's not really something I think that we have to vote on, but I could be wrong. But I just thought it would be a great idea if, based on our last committee meeting about continuing education, and with what our upcoming committee meeting, that I think it'd be great to help focus us, because I think we're on the cusp of getting a lot of things really accomplished as it relates to CE, is that we get some written input from some of our providers and from the colleges. The 3 colleges in California get their continuing education directors to provide us with constructive feedback on our competencies, and give us perhaps some examples if they think we can improve on those competencies, or the wording of those competencies, or those types of things, to give us constructive feedback, to give us, if they have different language that they might suggest, that they give us a rationale for that different language, and and try to keep their words focused, so that we as committee, prior to that next meeting, could review those documents that would give us direction and focus, and have the input from our providers and stakeholders that would give us greater direction. I think the committee was sent an email from someone that had participated in a process like this before. And that input I think was valuable, though apparently it wasn't utilized as well as it could have been. But I think it was a good idea from Kendra Holloway, the email that the executive passed on to our committee. So I think that would be a great idea, and I think it would really help us in focusing our next committee meeting to get that input. It would allow our stakeholders and providers to feel as though they are inclusive in that process, and distill our focus even that much more. So having said that, that's my hope recommendation, and maybe we can follow through with that, and the staff might have some suggestions on how we do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Adams. And let me just reassure you that, and everyone, that we have always asked and invited all stakeholders to all of our committee meetings. Last year, prior to you joining us, we had several meetings where there were several stakeholders who participated in robust discussion and input. And we always welcome the input, written or verbal, that into what we have been doing. We've been working on continuing ed for a long time and have consistently requested just, what you're saying. We've requested all input from stakeholders. And sometimes we get that and sometimes we don't. But regardless, we have had to move forward. We did have input, and that's part of the reason that we ended up going with the metrics and meta-analysis, and that structure is where some of that came from. So I want to assure you that we definitely have done that and have requested. We can only utilize what we get from the stakeholders, and oftentimes there isn't a significant amount of input in that area. But when there is, we definitely do utilize that. So I just wanted to reassure you and let you know that I know that you are new, and so just let you know what happened prior to you joining the board, that there definitely were committee meetings and continuous flow of information that has been relayed to us when it's available. However, when we put it out there and offer and there's no one who responds, we have to move forward. So did Natalie or Robert have anything additional there that they wanted to add?
No, I agree. I encourage participation, and we hopefully people who are concerned and interested about CE and the coming regs or the regs that the board is working on right now will take the time to participate and give us their feedback, so that we can consider those things now while we're drafting the language, rather than wait until we start the formal rulemaking process. And then it's more difficult to make those changes once we've already noticed the regulation with Office of Administrative Law. It's then there's a whole process we have to go through to make changes, and so I'd like to get the language right up front, and then make that formal process smoother.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you again, Dr. Adams. I appreciate the effort and respect where you're coming from, and want to reassure you again that we definitely have reached out and continue to keep the communication open for those who want to participate and who have language or who has information that can be meaningful to the discussion, that we always welcome that input. And again, that can be sent to Mr. Pulio directly via the board, and it would be disseminated appropriately at that time. So with that being said,
So with your permission then, Madam Chairman, would you be comfortable then as a member of the committee and a member of the board that I reach out to the colleges, ask for that feedback in writing, and then so that I can get that experience as well, and then I'll bring that to the next committee meeting. Are you comfortable with that?
I don't know that that would be necessary or appropriate at this stage. That's something that I should have further discussion with Mr. Pulio about and see what we already have that maybe we can share with you first, because I don't want to be redundant or going to them again with when they have already responded. So let's see, let's have that discussion, Mr. Pulio, on our next meeting, and then he can discuss that with you,
Okay.
Dr. Adams. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, if Natalie or Robert have any of the written information from any of the colleges on suggestions on the competencies, feel free to forward that to me through email. I'll be happy to review it, and I'll contact Robert and Natalie about any verbal comments that some of the providers and stakeholders have provided in the past. That I thought I have reviewed all those documents provided for me and just haven't seen a lot of that yet. So we'll follow up on that. Thank you for your time.
This is Dr. Parrish. Can I make just one comment?
Sure.
So yeah, and I of course outreach fantastic, and but I just want to be sure that having them comment on without the background and the history and the considerations of how we got to kind of utilizing the competency, and developing it in that format. So I think we had a previous suggestion of perhaps trying to do more of like a town hall where somebody could kind of walk the stakeholders through how did we get here, and then maybe get some more focused and helpful comments on as to where we're at. But I don't know if I know that we had actually, I think at one point we said that we were going to maybe try and arrange that or work on that, but I don't know where that's at. That's just my suggestion.
This is
Dr.
Robert.
Parrish. Oh, yeah, just Dr. Parrish. I couldn't agree more. I understand with COVID that has been constrained. That was really my suggestion behind this was some of the feedback, that I just in a little bit of time, I've done a little bit of background checking on this, is that some of the providers and stakeholders feel as though that perhaps the public comment portion of the board meetings and the committee meetings have not been sufficient for them to really develop some of their thoughts. And my feeling is that since the competencies are public information, as all agendas are provided to the public, that I'm just looking for, rather than do a town hall meeting and have it, my experience in talking with people is that in the past, there's been some back and forth and a lot of time delay on, people's opinions and, people's philosophies and all this other stuff that could really open itself up to being a very contentious and laborious and difficult process. And to avoid that, I just thought that if we get the input from some of our biggest providers and from the colleges in writing on the specific competencies, not to debate the competencies per se, because I think the competencies are good, but maybe there's, they're the ones that are implementing the courses. They're the ones that are going to have to take what we put out there and then make courses based on those competencies that may be getting that specific, maybe they have a little bit better way of saying it than we are, since they've, got many years of that experience. And that if we get those in a positive and constructive way, as Madam Chairman explained early on in the process of about having constructive and positive feedback in these processes, get that input in writing. It will distill it down for us. If we read it before the meeting, then we're going to just come in there that much better informed and focused in wrapping things up on those competencies. I just think it could be beneficial, kind of a quasi-town meeting through writing. Not that it hasn't been done in the past. I'm just, thinking that it could be beneficial in this process. And I would like to see that. I personally would like to see that done, because I think it would be helpful in focusing for all of us.
I appreciate and hear what you're saying, Dr. Adams, and I am not objecting to anyone's input that, like I said, who's bringing forth meaningful input. And when we talk about stakeholders, I'm sure that I assume that you're talking about those who, like you said, the colleges or universities or colleges, those would definitely be meaningful stakeholders who would have meaningful input. I'm just saying that let me check into see what we have. We've always allowed and offered for people to send in information to us. Now, we have received, just like the letter that you're referring to, we receive things now and then from people, but for the majority of people who have opinions about it, they don't take the time to do that. And so I don't want to delay our process with waiting and trying to gather information from people who are not really willing to bring it forth in that manner. I'm all in agreement with whatever input that we can get, that we want from those stakeholders who have some input to give. We are welcoming that. But like you said, to have a town hall meeting could be futile in productivity if it's not handled properly. And particularly, we don't want to continue to revisit the same debates or the same things that are not relevant to what we're talking about here. And what I've seen in the past is that that's what it turns into sometimes. I much rather, like you said, get people's input in writing if they want to take that time. We don't want to spend a whole lot of time chasing people down to get that information. That's what I'm trying to ultimately, tell you. But we do want to, acknowledge and welcome it if they are willing to do so. And we can talk about that. Like I said, I'd like to revisit what we do have with Mr. Pulio, and then identify who those stakeholders would be. And I'm sure that if you've spoken to Mr. Pulio, if you have recommendations, I'm talking to you, Dr. Adams, if you have recommendations of who those stakeholders are that you've spoken with, or that you're making the suggestions about, I would absolutely love if you would forward that to Mr. Pulio so that he can discuss that at that time with me, so that we can make sure that we include all of that information.
That sounds great. I would love that assignment from you to follow up on that. I know you're busy, I'm busy, but this is something that's important to me, and why I got on this board to make us a jewel. And so I'd be happy to work with Natalie and Robert and anybody in reaching out to those stakeholders and providers and asking them to say, hey, you got 3 weeks. If you care enough about this process, you got 3 weeks to give some input. And it better be constructive and positive and have a good rationale. If they don't want to participate, then they don't have to. But I just think it would be good to get that feedback and input. And so I appreciate your suggestions and your support in that. Thank you.
And you're welcome. And I think I cut someone off who was trying to speak. Was there another question, comment? Was that Dr. Paris? I don't know who that was.
No, not me. I'm good. Thank you.
And Mr. Pulio?
Oh, no, I think we'll have to discuss logistics. I think if we're going to reach out to stakeholders, we need to reach out to all stakeholders, or at least all providers, and give them equal opportunity to submit comments. Or this may be something, and we can discuss this offline, this may be something that we want to incorporate into our next CE meeting, talking about how to reach out to and engage the provider population so that they can participate in the process. And those who are listening, I encourage you to communicate with your fellow providers, and if there's any recommendations that you agree upon and can provide us with a suggestion with the rationale to back it up, that's greatly appreciated, and we'll work on doing this in a more formal fashion.
That sounds good, and that sounds appropriate. Thank you again, and thank you, Drs. Adams, Dr. Paris, and everyone for your input. At this time, I'd like to move on to.
Madam Chair, this is Michael Knotes again. I do think that based on this lengthy discussion following the motion relating to PACE, I do think we need to ask for public comment again on this portion of the discussion. Forgive me for breaking in again on you.
No, I absolutely welcome you breaking in and keeping me on the right track. I appreciate that. So you are correct. At this time, if the moderator would open it up for any public comment on that portion of the discussion regarding input, that would be fine with me at this time.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel for public comment. For your reference, instructions for requesting public comment are currently being displayed on your screen. You will be provided 2 minutes and given a 30-second warning. With that, we do have an individual identified as Lori Eisenberg. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Hi, this is Lori again. I just wanted to thank the speaker for making that suggestion about reaching out one more time in a positive and constructive way in a written fashion to the colleges. I think that would be extremely useful, even with the late stage that we're in and the invitations to participate in committee. I don't remember having received any such invitation to submit feedback specifically on those elements outside of the regular committee meetings. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I have a question for the public person. Are they still there?
This is the moderator. I can unmute her.
I just have a quick question.
Yes, certainly.
Go.
So is
Yes.
it Miss Eisenberg?
Yes, it is.
So where are you coming from? Where are you coming from to this meeting? Are you a provider?
Life Chiropractic College West. I'm the director of continuing education, and we are a provider and a current PACE member as well.
Okay, so Life Chiropractic College West, and how long have you been you're the CE director there?
Yes, 6 years.
6 years. So in the last 6 years, how you haven't submitted anything in writing? Or been asked to submit anything in writing?
Oh, I didn't know we were going back to the origins of my position. I was thinking we were referring specifically to the issue at hand.
Yeah, I'm just asking about this. You made a comment that you didn't remember being asked, and so I was just curious about that because I'm new to the board.
Oh, I see. I was invited to a special, I'm not sure what it was called, but a special group or a stakeholder meeting. Yeah, that was excellent.
Okay.
And I have voluntarily submitted my own comments from time to time. I can't recall whether I've been specifically invited to submit written comments. I'm not sure, but I don't think so.
All right. So
But
I'm just curious.
as stated previously, Dr. Adams, just so that we don't belabor the issues here, we have had input, as Ms. Eisenberg has said. We have had input. We have invited stakeholders to meetings. We've not, maybe not specifically requested them on this particular subject, but we have always requested that any additional input that they have, that they send it to Mr. Puleo, to the board. So I don't want to just keep going over, this so that we don't end up in prolonging our meeting here too long. I just want you to know and be comfortable in understanding that we will move forward as stated before, and following up with this and requesting that information as you suggested.
Yeah. I was just wanting to clarify. She made a public comment, and I just wanted to clarify. If she's read over the competencies and if she would be one of those. I mean, as she's a C from the colleges, that she would have some input on the idea of positive, constructive feedback on the competencies, and it sounds like she's affirmative on that. Is that correct, Dr. Eisenberg? Anyway, all right. Well, I feel like it's a well-received idea, so we'll follow up on it. Thanks.
Moderator, is there any other hands raised regarding public comment?
This is the moderator, and yes, it does appear that Lori Eisenberg would like to respond. Lori, your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you. I was actually trying to lower my hand, but I do feel invited and welcome to submit my feedback at any time, so I don't feel excluded. But thank you. No comment.
This is the moderator, and at the moment, we have no additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Feature has been closed.
And again, thank everyone for their input and comments there. Moving on to item number 11 for the fourth time. No. Ms. McMillan, thank you so much for being patient as we work through the details prior to you beginning. So if you would like to take over now, we would love to hear your update.
No problem. I'll be happy to. Hope you can hear me. So I'll be updating the board on the status of pending regulatory proposals. We have multiple regulations on various stages of completion. Staff are actively working on changes to the CE and curriculum regulations. We do have a proposed regulation that requires action from the board, and that is the denial of application, revocation, or suspension of licensure regulation. We're asking the board to adopt the proposed regulatory text to comply with AB 2138, and if adopted, to direct staff to prepare the rulemaking file for submission to OAL. I'd like to note the board approved the regulatory text to implement AB 2138 at the October 2020 meeting. The rulemaking file was noticed in March, and no public comments were received by the board. With that in mind, it is requested the board makes the motion to adopt the proposed text. I will be happy to entertain any questions you may have. And the motion is on the memo agenda item 11. So I also want to make sure that you are aware, if you like to make the motion, that there is one there for review as well.
So if any of the board members would like to make the motion would be to adopt the proposed regulatory text for Title 16 CCR sections 316.5, 326, and 327, and direct staff to prepare the rulemaking file for DCA's final review and approval by the Office of Administrative Law. So if any of the board members wants to make that motion and second it, then the board can discuss it.
I move the motion, Rufino.
And Dr. McLean, I'll second it. Is there any discussion?
And just FYI, this is language that the board had already approved prior to us sending it out for notice. We didn't receive any comments, and so unless something has come to your attention in the interim, this is something that the board has already reviewed and approved.
If there is no discussion, is there a public comment?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type "I would like to make a comment." You will be provided 2 minutes and given a 15-second warning. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, it does not appear we've received any requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes.
Feature has been closed.
Since there's no further discussion and no public comment, Mr. Rufino, can you call for the vote, please?
Yes, of course. Dr. McLean.
Yes.
Dr. Paris.
Yes.
Rufino. Yes. Dr. Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Rufino. Ms. McMillan, did you want to continue?
That's actually all that I have for now, and I would be providing any additional updates at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information and the work in that area and suggestions and changes. At this time, we'd like to move to agenda item number 12, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the proposed board meeting schedule for the remainder of 2021. Everyone will pull out your calendars and we can take a look. The staff has supplied us with a general calendar and highlighted some recommended dates. I believe the first one here would be July 29th. Myself, if we need to do, I wanted to see if everybody is available. If everybody's not available, I wanted to look at July 22nd instead. That is a more preferable date for me, but we can just open it up and discuss if that works for everyone or not.
This is Dr. Paris. Should we be seeing those dates on the screen, the proposed dates, or?
It's in your
packet.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought we were putting it up on the. Gotcha.
Madam Chair, this is Rufino. Maybe I'll start off by saying that the July 29th works for me, and I have a conflict on July 22nd. So I would prefer to keep July 29th.
Okay. Is there anyone else with the conflicts currently there? On the 29th, that is, I mean. No one, so it looks like July 29th will work for the majority of people or everyone. And therefore I will make it work for me. The next.
I'm going through
go
my
ahead.
calendar right now. Just give me 1 second.
Sure,
I'm just
take your
clicking.
time.
I'm trying to figure out if
I
have,
know.
if I have a meeting that day, but I'm trying to figure out if it's mandatory or just.
Do you have a meeting on the 29th or?
Yeah, but I'm just trying to figure out if it's mandatory or not for me. So let me.
Okay, we'll hold.
Yeah, it appears like the 29th. I'm scheduled 8 to 1. I would be unavailable.
And Mr. Rufino, sorry, knocking over everything. Mr. Rufino, you're not available at all on the 22nd. Is there an alternate, maybe the 23rd?
Madam Chair, let me look at the July board, the July calendar. The 22nd is definitely not available. I have a conflict. I have another board meeting, so.
Okay.
So the 15th will work if we want to stick with Thursday. Thursday, July 15, I'm available if that is a better date for everybody.
Are you available on? No, I was just going to say that if we can propose that not be only on Thursdays, because those are not always available options for everyone, that we can kind of alternate. That way we can make sure to accommodate everyone a little bit or as much as possible. Mr. Rufino, are you available on the 23rd? Go ahead, Robert. Is that you?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to let all the board members know these highlighted dates. We just went through and we tried to guide the board to, like, spaced out dates for future meetings, and so these are somewhat random, and it doesn't have to be on a Thursday. Ideally, it would be within a week or so of the date identified, because we want to keep the meeting spaced out appropriately. But these are just suggestions to help start the conversation.
Are you available on the 23rd of July, Mr. Rufino and Dr. Paris?
This is Rufino. I would venture to say no, although I'm not sure. There's a possibility that I could, but as of now, I would say no. But I am available the last week of July, so the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, or 30th. That I can confirm formally.
I have a question. This is Dr. Adams. Is it possible to do the board meeting from 1 to 5 if Dr. Paris is done or 1:30 to 5 on the 29th?
That can be a challenge, but if we can find an alternate date that would allow us to have a earlier meeting, I would prefer that we try that first, and then we can go back to maybe looking at that. That could be a bit strenuous, I think, on staff as well, going into a late meeting. There are other options as well that we could discuss, but let's try for some alternate dates.
Was the 15th? I think, Madam Chair, you were suggesting the possibility of the 15th?
No, that was Mr. Rufino. The 15th is not great for me. The 16th would be better. I don't know if that works for Mr. Rufino. Or
yes, that could work for me on the 16th. The other comment, and I don't advocate one way or the other, but I like the idea that Dr. Adams proposed. It's getting creative. That if on the 29th we could do 1 to 5, and if needed, we can block the 30th. I don't know whether that.
The 30th does not work for me.
Oh, okay, got it. So from my perspective, the 15 or the 16, I am available if that works for everybody else.
Is there any other comment there?
I can do 16. I'm very flexible that day.
And so let's make it the 16th. That way everybody is available. We can schedule it accordingly, according to the earlier time as well. So that sounds like it would work better. Okay, let's move on to the next date. Is that good, Robert?
That works.
Okay. The next date that we have scheduled is well, not scheduled. I apologize for that. The suggested date would be September. Again, sorry, I apologize. The 16th does not work for me in September. The 17th or the 23rd or the 24th I can do.
So, Madam Chair, this is Rufino again, and I am on the same boat that you are. The 16th will not work for me. 17th possibly, but the 23rd definitely, or the 24th definitely.
Okay.
The 23rd of September works for me.
Dr. Paris and Mr. Sweet.
This is Raphael Sweet. 23rd works for me.
Dr. Paris?
I could do either day.
Okay, so let's make it the 23rd. Hold on one second. I'm sorry, guys. I have to check one other place. Where is it? No, I'm okay. September 23rd. Is that what we said, right? Feel free to chime in. September 23rd, correct?
Yes, I believe that's the date we were discussing.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Okay.
that's petitioners, right? Is that correct? That's a petitioner hearing day?
No.
I think September was for petitioner hearings, as I recall. Yeah,
Robert,
we need to get
do
a
you have
petitioner
that?
hearings in September 21. Yeah, that was for petitioner hearings.
Robert, do we have that listed? Was that a suggestion? Because I don't recall that being on
Well,
the
I know,
schedule.
you know what, I apologize, it's not addressed in the memo, but the, and we don't necessarily have to have petitioner hearings on any one of these dates, but we do have, having 2 meetings, the September and the October, right after one another. One of those, the intention was for one of those to be a petitioner hearing. So we could do, we could make this date. This is only 2 months from the board meeting, so it'd probably be better to make this a petitioner hearing and then have the board meeting in October. The last.
I was just going by, Robert, I was just going by the front of the memo says staff recommends July and October 2021 as a meeting, and then conduct petitioner hearings in September. That's all I was going by.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I was looking for that and I glossed right over it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So the September would be, and the good news for the board members for that meeting is the petitioner hearing likely wouldn't take as much time as the board meeting, although you never know.
Right.
I would
Okay. So then the October meeting.
I'm sorry,
October,
we did
go ahead.
decide on the 23rd, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
So then the October meeting.
Madam Chair, the October 28th does not work for me,
Okay.
but October 21st can work for me.
Okay, hold on.
That works for me as well, October 21st.
And FYI, because that will be the last board meeting of the year. So we could extend it out because it's still 2 more months. So we could, if if the first or second week of November is better for more people, we can extend it out that way.
What about you, Dr. Paris? I know that I'd like to hear your availability. Would the October date work, or would you prefer early November?
Let me see here. I would probably my preference would be that we maybe try and bounce it back to a Friday again, if we could.
I would like that as well.
More so than necessarily the week. So like the 29th or maybe the 12th or something like that. I guess we get
Mr.
into November.
Pulio, can you weigh in on your availability for Friday?
Me?
I'm sorry, Mr. Ruffino. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Yes, yes, Madam Chair, the November 12th would work for me. Not the 29th. The October 29th will not.
Okay, Dr. Adams, can you make the 12th work?
Yeah, I mean, if it's far enough out, I'll make the time. So if it has to be on a Friday, then we'll make it work, November 12th.
All right, then it's set. Did I cover everyone? I'm sorry, Mr. Sweet, did you weigh in on that?
Yeah, this is Mr. Sweet. I can make the 12th work. Yeah, that's far enough out.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so Mr. Pulio, I think we have the July 16th, September 23rd, and November 12th.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for being flexible so that we can try to accommodate all of our busy schedules.
I'd like to suggest that, because we will do this again at the November 12th meeting for the coming year, but this is something we might want to implement for the committees as well, because it's difficult. Doodle polls can get kind of, you don't have the quick back and forth like you do. So I wanted to suggest that the committees maybe do this same thing at the end of each committee meeting. Discuss the date for the next meeting so we can get that on the calendar if that works for the committee members. And we don't have to decide here. I just wanted to throw that out there because we have had some challenges scheduling committee meetings and finding dates. And usually there's not as much advanced time between the committee meetings, so it's helpful to be able to discuss them at the meeting and get them on the get it scheduled. So just a suggestion. It doesn't, no decisions have to be made here, but we could start putting that on the agendas for committee meetings.
Just a comment from Rufino. I think it's a great suggestion, Mr. Pulio, to at the end of each committee meeting to come together and decide when the next committee meeting, if possible. I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. Dr. Paris.
Thank you, guys. Thank Thanks, everyone, for your input there. Yes, so we will attempt to do that.
Mr.
So-
Rufino's hand is up. Is that
Oh,
intentional?
sorry.
Sorry, Ms. Pulley, that was I forgot to take, there we go.
Okay, just checking. Sorry, Dr. McLean.
So, Madam Chair, this is legal counsel speaking.
Yes.
I don't think you necessarily need a motion. You can set the agenda. But we would need to take public comment as well on the meeting schedule, I think.
Okay, so any other additional discussion from the board members or staff? And if not, then I'd like to ask the moderator to please open for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type, "I would like to make a comment." All comments will be addressed in the order they are received. You will be provided 2 minutes and given a 15-second warning. With that, I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Feature has been closed.
And at this time, then the meeting schedule for the rest of 2021 has been set forth as previously stated, the 3 dates that were previously stated. That being said, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 13. Public comments for items not on the agenda. So if the moderator could open back up, sorry, I apologize, for public comment for items that are not on the agenda.
Certainly, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, instructions are currently being displayed for your reference. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. We have received no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes.
Feature has been closed.
At this time, we'd like to move to agenda item number 14, future agenda items. At this time, we'd like to ask if the board or staff have any future agenda items. I will assume that the pause means that there are no future agenda items that you would like to bring forth at this time. I'd like to open it up for public comment on future agenda items.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type, "I would like to make public comment." I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we've received no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature? Madam Chair, would you like me to close this feature? That's okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. Feature has been closed.
At this time, we will move on to agenda item number 15, which is now the closed session. The board will meet in closed session to deliberate on disciplinary decisions.
And just for any members of the public that are still on the line, nothing happens after closed session. They just come back in to open session and then immediately adjourn the meeting. So the public meeting is effectively over. So there's no need to hang on the line.